So, hey, brand babies, this is your ghetto country brand mother. And today I am starting a series where I am interviewing people, or they're pretty much interviewing me, where I'm doing a Ask Me Anything episode. And this is where they can ask me anything about their brand or brand strategy. Y'all know I don't do pretty shit, but I do good shit. So that's what we're talking about today. And today I have Chris Martin. And Chris Martin, he is just all the extras because he is also a podcaster. But y'all know what? I'm new to this. He's been doing this shit for a while. So he is going to introduce himself better than I ever could. Come on and tell him who you are, Chris.
As Phyllis said, I'm Chris Martin, and I've been doing a podcast called Getting Work to Work for over 6 years now, and about 629 episodes in, and there's still a lot of stuff to learn.
Wow. How did you get to 600? How often do you podcast? How often do you share your podcast?
I do 2 episodes a week, and so on Wednesdays I do a monologue, which is kind of like my solo episodes about
Mhm.
sharing what I'm learning, and then Fridays are interviews with cool people.
All right. All right. And what made you get into podcasting?
Well, I was teaching a class at a college, and it was a professional practices class.
Mhm.
And a student was like, "Hey, I love what you're sharing in class, and I wish you had a platform outside of the classroom to share."
Okay.
I don't remember how I got to podcast, but I got to podcast, and because I don't actually listen to podcasts much, it's not my preferred way of taking in information.
Me too,
But
neither.
I love making them.
All right. So, with all of this going on, there's something else that you do as well besides podcasting. What is your other thing that you do?
Yeah, so I make podcasts for people
Okay.
as opposed to doing my own, and then I also do a lot of video production work
Mm-hmm.
for nonprofits, small businesses who want to tell their story in a visual way as well.
Okay. So today is you get to ask me anything. I can ask you a whole lot of questions about podcasting because I don't know shit. But today, this is you asking me questions about branding. And hopefully you came with some questions. I know I gave you a questionnaire ahead of time, but I
Mhm.
want you to tell me, what do you think you know about your and I shouldn't say what do you think you know, but what do you know about your brand?
What do I know about my brand?
Yes.
I would say honestly, not that much. I don't know if I've really taken it seriously over the years. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here is also to ask questions, but also, I guess, sit at the feet of someone who is got a lot of wisdom to share about brands. Because, I get that it's not just a logo. I get that it's how you make people feel and what they think about you.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's about it, honestly.
Okay. So one of the things that I make sure people understand that I don't do brand strategy the way most people do it, especially since I focus on solopreneurs.
Mhm.
Most brand strategy is done based around putting the client or the customer first for that person's business. I'm all about putting you first because it's about you getting comfortable with your own thing before you put your best foot forward with the client or the customer. They can come second and then know that whole thing, but right now it's about you first. So
Yeah.
how comfortable are you with the brand that you currently exist in?
I don't know if I'm comfortable yet because I think I still have that mentality of the other, the client,
Mhm.
the target audience.
Mhm.
So there's like this war inside of me. Like there's the I guess bullshit that people say about what, your brand needs to be.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the other side of me that's just like, well, I don't see it that way. I want it to be about me. I want them to hire me because I'm going to come at something unique to my experiences, my education, the way that I feed my brain with knowledge and be able to kind of like draw things out of people.
Mhm.
And so it's like if they just want someone to be an order taker, there's thousands of people out there doing what I do, but if they want my take on it, that's a lot different. So
Okay.
I think I have that war going on inside between those two
Mm.
kind of
Being an order
frame
taker
of
and
mind.
being an expert.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm gonna ask you one more question, then you can ask me. But
Please.
with how you express that and how you look at that from your point of view, because I know we talked about some of your goals and I know your income goal and
Mhm.
all of that. And one of the things that I do is I get people to a certain level because I do want them to scale. But your thing is not actually to scale, it's just to be comfortable. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, and even that is the number that I gave you is still significantly more than where I've been
Okay.
and even where I'm at right now. And so it is a significant goal. I didn't put it down lightly as like,
Okay.
oh, I read that in order to be happy, all you need is that number. It was that's a significant jump from where I am. But I
Okay.
also recognize that I got some crap going through my head about, brands and business and who I am and how I show up in the world.
All right. Well, come on with it. What is your first question for me?
One of the things that I know I struggle with is I don't know if it's shiny project syndrome or just like I love all sorts of things. And so for 15 years, I've been doing this business since 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started my business, it's like I'm going to do anything and everything that I can if I have an interest in it, if I have a desire to do it, and someone pays me to do it, I'm going to do it. And over the years, I've thrown things out that I don't want to do anymore and added services and added things. And so I guess, how do you handle multiple interests in multiple business pursuits as a brand?
As a brand, it's easy, but as a person, not so much. And and one of the things that's not talked about at this level when we're talking about solopreneurs is we don't talk about brand architecture
Mm,
because there are a lot of people out here that want to do different things. You
mhm.
have to figure out how they fit into the brand architecture. It's not just what you offer, but it's like how do you want to build this whole thing?
Yeah.
And we can go into the whole dynamic of house of brands, branded house, and all of that. But if you have varying interests that can align with the main brand, then
Mhm,
these are things that you build on. And so you like right now we were talking about your number earlier, but
mhm,
also understanding that you may not want to scale beyond a business of one, but you may want to scale administratively so that you can pursue all those interests.
mhm.
So if you do video and you do podcasting, the podcasting now maybe is your main baby, but you want to be able to bring in the video aspect because maybe people want to do live recordings of their podcast,
Mhm.
and now they can turn around and do that with you, but then they can come again and hire you to do the editing of the video portion because they want to place it on their website or they want to put it behind a paid wall where people can actually do that. So this is not taking anything away from you doing their podcasting, but it's adding on the aspect like if you're doing this on a recorded version on a visual level, then
Mhm.
how about I also help you with this thing right here? And this is another part of your brand architecture. Now, if they need to, they can actually separate them. It's like, well, I don't really need you to help with the podcasting, but I need help with the editing portion of my podcasting, the visual portion, so
Mhm.
that I can put it on YouTube or I can put it behind a paywall or put it on my Patreon. So it's just a matter of finding the things that are of interest to you and
Mhm.
building them out in an architecture that's conducive to growing your brand. And
Yeah.
then as you begin to do these things, now you can hire help to make these things happen. So maybe you're not just your only editor, but now you can hire another freelancer to do maybe the smaller jobs while you do the bigger jobs, or you have certain VIP clients versus, you know what, this is just a dude that's going to use me one time and I probably will never see him again.
Right. I've never had that happen.
But there's a way to align those things that they can go under the same brand umbrella. But
Mhm.
when it comes to you putting it out there from a marketing aspect, you put it out in a way where you show the alignment, so there's no disconnect. It's like, yes, I love all these things, I want to do all of it, but
Mhm.
aligning it under the brand is like, we do podcasting, but we take it a step further by doing visual podcasting. So after we do this audio version, I will take and edit this portion so that you can, like, maybe you dole it out in pieces for your social media, or you take a clip and you put it here, so you're able to offer them that extended service. And so now your client is actually of more value to you than if you just did the podcast.
Mm.
Does that answer your question?
That does. I love to see the connection between things. Like
Mm-hmm.
whenever I talk to like a multi hyphenate or people who do lots of things, I'm always
Uh-huh.
like, what's weaving between all of these things? Because
Yes.
I think that's a very important piece.
Yeah. And so, and with this, like I said, you can say that you specialize in podcasting, but you can say that you specialize in podcasting from an from an audio perspective and a visual perspective.
Mhm.
So that brings in the video portion of it. And it still keeps a mainstream thing of, you know what, this is about podcasting. I
Yeah.
know the platform that I use is Anchor, and they now have a thing where you can just put in the video version of your podcast. So I think that's definitely something you can add to your architecture, and it does not lose anything in the brand of it all. So,
Yeah. One of the things that I really struggled with since we last talked, like in
mhm.
preparation for this talk today, was I had to do a real heart to heart with myself, because I think when I have multiple interests, I've created multiple identities
Mhm.
about who I am, what I
Okay.
am, and what I've realized is there's some outdated identity pieces, like or just things that didn't belong in the business anymore but could be like outside the scope of business.
Okay.
and
Okay.
and so, like, for example, when I say I used to say that I'm a documentary filmmaker,
Okay.
and that was a really important identity piece for a very long time. And the aha moment I had because of our conversation last time was, well, when was the last time I've actually made one? It
Okay.
was about a year ago. Why am I still holding on to this identity piece when I've learned more as an interviewer doing the podcast that I've done than all of the documentaries I've made over the years? And so I guess there's a piece of wrestling with the identity. So, like, how do you, like, work with solopreneurs to not only own their platform, their architecture, but to
Mhm.
wrestle with that identity piece?
It's a matter of like, because that, to me, that falls into when I talk to people about them code switching. And so one of the things, like, I show up consistently across my life, brand, and business, I make sure that there's that consistent piece. And then
Mm,
even as you were talking about that documentary, excuse me, that excuse me, even as you were talking about that documentary filmmaker piece,
mhm.
you can still bring that to this thing if you want to hold on to it a little bit, because the way that I was hearing it, it's like, okay, people are doing podcasts. Normally podcasts are based on realistic shit. It's
Yeah.
not based on, like, you have the old versions of, like, when people used to do radio TV or radio dramas and all of that. But most people who are doing podcasting are doing it from something that's relative, that's not nonfiction, that's documented. It's a documentary. So
Mhm.
again, we can bring this into the podcasting. It's like I do the audio, visual, and documentary version of what it is that it means to have this podcast. But if you're trying to let it go, it's like you can still put that, like, if you do your social media and you show behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
maybe behind the scenes is that I still do documentary stuff just on my own level. And it
Mhm.
gives people an insight look to, this is something that he's good at,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily something he does to get paid.
Yeah.
And when you talk to your clients, like when you do discovery calls, this is also something, like, if you can mention to them that if there's ever a piece where they want to do a documentary piece, because we brought in that video version,
Mhm.
we said that this is the podcast, but maybe you need an intro that's a documentary to how you got into this. So you
Mhm.
can still bring it in every once in a while. It's not for every client that you get, but
Right.
it still allows you to keep your toe in that pool of something that you love. And
Yeah.
it's not about taking yourself out of that identity. It's something that you used to do, you can put it that way, or it's
Mhm.
something that you do on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
And so it alleviates the wrestling of, you know what, I don't do this anymore, but I still love it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, because I think there's that imposter syndrome piece of, like, well, I haven't done it as much. Am I
Mhm.
still that thing?
Mhm. And like, because just in all, what else, tell me another interest, because like I said, I can make shit fit. I'm just sorry. I
Yeah.
can make it work together. But I
Of
don't
course.
want
That's
you,
why
I
you're
don't
awesome.
want you I don't want it to be a struggle, like you're trying to hold on to all these different
Yeah.
pieces. But if, like I said, if we put all of this under the umbrella of podcasting, because podcasting can be a form of documentary, it's
Mhm.
just an audio version. But then if you want to have pieces that are video, it's like maybe we only video this portion, but we take this portion out. because people are trying to be speakers and so forth. So those stories are usually relative to, you know what, we need to do a documentary on how you got here, what your keynote is, and all of these different things. And it ties it all together and under the umbrella of, I'm still a podcaster.
Yeah.
I'm still podcasting. And
Yeah.
I'm still this documentary person. But like I said, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Because you might run across a client. It's like, you know what? I don't do this very often, but I think you would be great to do a documentary segment just for your opening on your website. It could be a 10-minute documentary and that's all you need.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, wow, I didn't think of that. And so you become that expert, like, oh, he gave me some shit I didn't even think to do. And it still allows you to keep your toe in something that you love.
Yeah. I love that, because I think there's that natural tendency when I hear the phrase niching down, like I automatically think of what I have to get rid of. And and I've thought of it that way for a long time, but what I'm hearing from you now is like it's all about context.
Yes.
Like how do you relabel these things to fit the context of podcasting?
Yes. And so your niche now becomes podcasting, but on a level that it includes documentary and videography. And how do we put all of these pieces together? And so this puts you in a unique position, like nobody else is really talking about it on that level.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to be that multi-hyphenated solopreneur. Oh, I do all the things. Sweetie, that's a jumbled ass mess. And so it doesn't come off properly. But if you put it in the context of this still falls under here, but these are the add-ons that you can get to this thing, then it becomes like, oh, fuck, I'm fucking fabulous. You know what I mean? I am some extra that nobody else knew and not even me at the moment, but now I do. I can turn this brand into something that no one else is doing. I can say on my site that these are the different things that I handle. This is how you add a documentary to your podcast. This is how you add a piece of video. You don't need a video for everything. And so it's all there, but it's not a matter of I had to take some shit off. I had to label it properly and put it under this umbrella or this branded house or house of brands or however you plan to roll it out.
Yeah.
How does that work for you?
I like that a lot because I'm a very stubborn person. I don't know if you can recognize that one bit, but
I can relate and recognize.
I'm a very stubborn person. And so like if someone tells me that I shouldn't do something or that I can't do something, I immediately like dig in and want to prove them wrong. And I've wasted too much energy, I think, trying to prove them wrong instead of just being like, what can I learn from what they just said so that then I can make my shit better?
Yes. And so when you like in talking about just putting these pieces together like this, I think this gets you closer to that financial goal that we were talking about, because now you're at a different price point. And then also because you have this level of expertise to turn a podcast into a documentary that has video, that's a whole different level of charging $100 versus charging $1,000. I'm that expert that does this thing because I'm the first one that decided to put it together like this.
Right.
And there are people out here who say, you know what, let me help you with your marketing by creating a video. Okay, that's a whole different thing. They have a whole production department and just all of that. But coming at it from a podcast standpoint, you know what, let's put these three pieces together.
Yeah.
We're going to have a documentary that includes your podcast. It includes a documentary and some video so that you can disperse and market your business. And you are now, like I say, this just makes you so much more valuable, and it changes your price point so that you can hit that financial goal. But it also puts you at a price point. It's like, okay, now if I need to hire some help, I pass that on to the client, because I know as I do this thing, when I need some extra editing, like they can edit the video while I do the audio or vice versa. This is included in the price that I charge the client. So it's still not coming out of my pocket. So my profit margin is still what it needs to be. Because at any point, I don't care if you are a solopreneur, there's three things that you need to pay. You need to pay the employee, the boss, and the company. You're all three of those things by yourself.
Yes.
So the company gets the profit margin is for the company. The boss gets paid, that's you, because you're running the company, but you're also that employee. All of them get paid and they all have different prices. You may pay yourself as the employee $20 an hour. And I'm just putting hourly value on it because I'm not getting into value pricing. But
Yes.
$20 an hour. But then the boss makes $50 an hour. So if you're charging hourly, you have to at least charge $70 an hour. But you still need to pay the company. So the
Mm-hmm.
profit margin that you want from your company may be 30%. So you have to add 30% onto that $70 an hour. And now we're working with some prices that everybody gets paid. So then when you decided, like, you know what, I'm taking myself off the employee game and I'm gonna go freelance or hire someone, that's still, that $20 an hour is not hurting you because it was already built into the price.
Yeah.
So it's having that level. Like I say, when I talk about scaling for solopreneurs, I'm not talking about you you can become multi-million-dollar. I'm not mad at that. But it's like scaling on the level that you want to and getting to that place where, okay, now I see my value in a different light. Now I see my business and my brand in a different light. So
Mm-hmm.
tying all of those things together for you, I think would just be fabulous. I think that is something that I haven't seen before. I don't know if it's happening, but I think it's definitely something that's doable to get you to that financial goal.
Yeah. I appreciate that a lot because it helps me to not want to throw out accidentally any of the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I think there's a tendency to be like, well, I'm just going to remove it completely. Whereas you reframed it and said, don't remove it, put it in context.
Put it in context.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I see your wheels turning. What are you thinking?
My bad. No, I'm just there's also a component to that weaves in the audio, the video components is getting to know the person behind the microphone
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that they're showing up as themselves.
Yes.
And that's actually one of a very enjoyable part of the process is spending that time to learn the language that people use, the references, so that they're showing up as themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a tendency to want to communicate how you think people want you to communicate versus you just being you. Like, that's one thing that I really appreciate about you is I can tell you're not feeding me any lies. You're
Mm-hmm.
just being 100% yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when I'm working with customers and clients, I want them to be like Phyllis, where they're being themselves and they're not lying.
I like that. I like that. So if we were to put these pieces together in a way that it's like maybe you offer three different packages. One, you just offer the podcasting. This one you offer podcasting in video, and then the next package is podcast, video, and a documentary.
Mhm.
How do you think that would fit for your business?
I like that. And the reason why I like that is because it allows my brain to kind of like spend some time in each bucket
Mm-hmm.
and wander back and forth as it kind of sees fit or gets, I hate to say inspired, but I think
Mm-hmm.
there is a level of inspiration that occurs between the two or three because as someone who edits podcasts audio only and then audio and video,
Mm-hmm.
it's two different types of the brain. Even though the software is very similar, you edit visually differently than you would just audio.
Mm-hmm.
And so it allows my brain to jump around and get
So
and
it doesn't
spin
stay
farther.
there all the time.
Yes.
And the other thing I'm thinking is that this actually allows your brand to scale. So if with these three packages, it might become that, you know what, that you end up just branching off and having a brand that does strictly, you know what, we're going to do short form documentaries for people's website. Like we do 10-minute documentaries.
Mhm.
And it's like, what does that look like? And as you perfect that, that becomes its own thing. And while it's still a package over here, it can spin off into its own brand.
Yeah.
And so now you have this thing over here where you get to move between the ones, but you start hiring people to run those things.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, which one do I want to work in today? Because you know what, I have all of these things going on, and I think there's so much scalability to that you have to wrap your mind around again because like, okay, am I ready to move into this $1 million market? Because that's where I'm heading.
Right.
and having these multiple streams that they were once just packages, 3 different levels of packages, to now like, okay, people are wanting 10-minute documentaries to go on their sites, and let's move it over here. Let's go give it its own space. You can still get the packages over here, which are priced this way, but now because it's over here is its own spin-off brand, and it's more expertise, it is now actually higher priced over here under the spin-off brand than it was when it was part of the package.
Mm. So what I'm hearing you say is that a brand is not just your business.
No, hell no. No.
Okay,
It's
that's blowing my mind a little bit here.
and this is why when I talk about it from life, brand, and business perspective, it's you being able to show up in all of those things at your capacity. The reason I embrace the Ghetto Country Grandmother is because I have boundaries around the Ghetto Country Grandmother that if you don't know me well enough, you can't touch Phyllis. Because you're not ready to, because you just like me as Ghetto Country. Sweetie, there are parts of me over here as Phyllis that you cannot stand. I'm telling you, it's like, bitch, no. See, instead of being the empathic bitch, I'm just bitch over here.
Yeah.
And stuff. But when you decide how you want that consistency to show up for you, so there's something about you, just you, that you know what, Chris is consistent in all of these things, but when you take Chris out of the context of his business or his brand, because you have to lead them differently. Over here, you're being a brand leader. So this is when you decide if you're going to spin off or you're going to become a house of brands or a branded house. That's you being a brand leader. But being a business leader, now you're projecting into the future and you're looking at your financials differently. You've hired an accountant to do the day-to-day transactions, but over here, I got to forecast and see where am I going to next. Brand, when they talk about brand and vision, they're talking about, okay, where do you see the brand in the future? Like, how is it going to fit into the marketplace? But when you see your business in the future, now we're talking numbers and growth and different things. So it's understanding, like, even when I show up, if I go sit at a board meeting because I done got that fucking big, when I'm sitting in this board meeting, I'm still Chris, this level of Chris. I'm still leading. So I go from being a brand, from being a business owner to I'm a fucking leader. And owning those leadership roles allows you the capacity to be the same consistently. One of the biggest reasons I lean into this is because I see so many people get caught with their pants down because they built something around the customer and they tried to fit into that. But then when people realize that you're an actual human being, now they want to like kick you to the curb and all the cancel culture and all the boycotting and all. Sweetie, I was always this way. I just kept it here from you.
Right.
And so and this is what I don't want people to do. I'm not saying put all your business in the street, but showing a level of consistency, whether you're being a brand leader, a business leader, or just leading your fucking life, then these are all just different versions of you just consistently. Does that make sense? Or am I talking crazy?
No, it does make sense. I think the piece that I'm taking from what you just said is the importance of boundaries
Yes.
and consistency. That you can be consistent even with boundaries.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And so because like my mind goes to big picture. And just in this short conversation, I see you turning this into you will blow this number out of the water. It's just a matter of like how you grow and scale and not trying to do it quickly. It will happen fast. It'll seem like it happened fast, but when you rush it, that's when you get the fuck ups. You get more, I say more fuck ups, because you're going to fuck up anyway.
Right.
But I know when we tried to grow quickly, and this is back in my restaurant days, it was very overwhelming. And so I don't want to like put this whole big picture in your head. I do want you to have aspirations, but I don't want to make them so big. It's like, oh God, I'm hyperventilating because this is a whole lot of money. And that's because everybody starts seeing the money instead of seeing this is what I do well.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I talk about when I talk to clients is because we're talking about this as a personal brand and a business brand, I don't talk about pitching your business. I talk about endorsing your business. And that's what your personal brand is for. It is so much easier to endorse something than it is to pitch something or sell it. So when you take the capacity of your personal brand to endorse anything, because someone's going to see you endorse your business to a point like, oh, I want you to endorse mine. Now you're becoming that your personal brand is endorsing, not your business. And
Mm-hmm.
your personal brand is always something that you get to hold on to. Your business brand, this is what you let everyone else amplify and magnify.
Mm.
This is what grows and scales. You get to keep your personal brand, because some people like, I don't know how to let it go. Sweetie, keep your personal brand. That's strictly you. Nobody else can copy that.
Yeah,
But you know what? You create this business brand over here for them to be able to do everything that they need to do to help it grow and scale. Does that make sense?
it
And I
does.
keep checking because I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
No, that's good. I appreciate because sometimes you can, not just you, but like we when we're talking, we can just be like, yeah, that made sense. I'm just gonna keep going. It does make sense. I do like the idea of the personal brand informing what, or endorsing, the word you use, the
Mm-hmm.
business
Yes.
and the things happening over there. So at that point, other people define the business brand and I'm just holding it up, or
You're still that brand leader. The personal brand is, there's I'll show you when we get done with the call. But when you're talking about brand architecture, there are certain levels in buildings and so forth. So one of my favorite brands, and I try not to use big brands, but it's the only thing that people recognize, because if I tell you smaller ones, like, I don't know who the hell that is. But anyway, when you're looking at brand architecture, one of my favorite brands is Apple. Apple is a straight endorser brand. Everything is its own thing. But
Mhm.
because it's Apple, Apple is endorsing that particular version of whatever it is that they create.
Okay.
So iPad is its own thing, iMac is its own thing, I what is it? What am I missing? iWatches, all of the things.
I
Because
don't
these
know.
I know all of these products are out there. And so if you change Apple to orange, you've taken away some of that value.
Mhm.
But people still recognize iPad, iMac, iWatch, iPhone. They still recognize all those eyes. But like I said, because Apple has become such a big endorser of all of those things, change that shit to orange or cherry or plum, and it loses value. So when you become, like, when you have Chris the personal brand over here versus Chris the business brand, and I'm not telling you to name your company's that, but when you have Chris the personal brand over here endorsing the business, and it's so much easier for you to talk about it from a perspective of how do you endorse anything else.
Mhm.
And so as this gets endorsed, the language that you use to endorse the business is the same language everyone else starts to use to
Mm.
endorse the business. But when people are talking about, you know what, Chris spoke to us today, and they're talking about your personal brand. Chris spoke to us today. Chris did his book signing. Chris did this. So the conversation around you is different than the conversation around your business. And so the reason I tell people to endorse their business is because when we talk about, and this makes me cringe too, when we talk about know, like, and trust, so many solopreneurs and freelancers have gotten to the point of, you have to know, like, and trust me by getting all up in my personal business. So
Mhm.
watch me dance, watch me do yoga, watch me point, watch me travel. There's all of this shit that they put on display. And that's fine if you want to put all your business in the street. But I don't know, like, and trust you for the results that you bring, because I don't know what the fuck they are.
Right.
So while I like you as a person, I don't trust you over here to do my business, because all I saw you do was point.
Mhm.
You have brought me no value to help me improve whatever it is that I need results for. So when you put it over here to the business brand and let it do its thing, sweetie, it's not me, it's the company.
Mhm.
Yes, I did that, but this is the company. Because you want anybody that comes into the company to be able to acknowledge that they're part of that bigger brand. And so when you're over here, personal brand Chris doing the thing,
Mhm.
I want y'all to recognize that Chris, the business, is over here doing some shit too, because I have all these great people here. I have all these great clients, and all of them endorse the brand, the business. They like me and they talk about me because I built a reputation, which
Mhm.
is totally different than the reputation of my business.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you're creating the business brand, you're also creating something like, oh, I want to go work over there. People think brands are just about the clients. You also want to attract, because most people nowadays, they only take a job for the money and the check.
Mhm.
But if you build a business and a brand around a culture that you thrive in,
Yeah.
oh, I want to come work for you. You don't even have to pay me. And that's because people get excited about what you presented within this business. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I like the idea of, ooh, I want to work there. Because even as a business owner, I don't know if you've ever been there, but there's been times where I just like, I want nothing to do with my business. And that's not a fun place to be
No.
because I'm the one creating it.
Yeah.
Why am I running from it?
Think that comes from it gets I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, but it gets scary.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I work the way that I work, and most brand strategists, they are a done for you type of service. I'm a done with you type of service because I need you to sit here next to me and let me know that are we on the right direction? Are we going in the right direction?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to understand your brand from the inside out, sweetie, if I come back and I give you a roadmap and say, okay, this is how you close the gap from where you are to where you want to be, you will look at me like I don't have a team of people to activate all this shit. And so it's with the understanding that if I do it with you, if I'm sitting here holding your hand, yes, you're a solopreneur, but you got somebody next to you that's supporting you, cheering you on, making sure that you turn the right corners and understand what you said and what you actually want are kind of
Mm-hmm.
lined up
Yeah.
versus me saying you've given me all the information, which is what brand strategists do. You go in, you have the workshops, they facilitate, they ask you all the questions, and then they go and interview some random people that could be clients, and then they go look at the competition and say, okay, all right, here's your roadmap. You need to fit in here, you need to create this for them, and you need to put this type of message. I don't fucking like them. How do you know I want to? And
Right.
that is the thing. Because I long time ago, I decided, sweetie, just because you throw money at me doesn't mean that I'm going to work for you. I
Mm-hmm.
have fired clients before. It's like, no, this is not working.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. So as you begin to build and you begin to grow, one of the things that you'll learn that as your brand matures, because it will mature, is that you will refine the message and you will refine the brand. Because you may start out over here, but you'll end up over there. Another reason why I use Apple is because Apple actually started out as a rebel brand. When
Mm-hmm.
they went up against PC, they were a freaking rebel brand.
Mm-hmm.
But then as they matured, they became an innovative brand, totally different vibe. So you get to be at the forefront of that change because you are that brand leader.
Mm.
And that's how I think solopreneurs need to start seeing themselves.
Yeah.
Stop saying you're a business owner. Everybody can stop saying you're a boss. The only person you can boss is you. Everybody else you need to lead at some level.
Yeah.
Because if you're bossing people around, then you're trying to tell people what to do. And I don't give a rat's ass if you are giving them a paycheck, they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's if you get to the place where you know what you want to lead by example or you want to lead by however it is you want that brand to show up, then it hits different. And you begin to change the structure and the culture of how businesses are growing. And we don't have so much toxicity out there. I'm not saying it's going away,
Mm-hmm.
but you won't be part of that adding to that toxic. I can't even say the word, that toxicity. So do you think that you can see your brand differently now, or do you think that you can start to make some tweaks and changes just based on this conversation?
I think so. I think what I'm seeing differently is I'm able to further kind of some of the distance in terms of like my identity
Mm-hmm.
versus the brand over here. So, for example, Chris Martin, I don't need to just wrap like all of my identity into Chris Martin Studios. I don't have to wrap all of my identity in Getting Work to Work, which is my podcast.
Yes.
Those are all separate brands
Yep.
and they all have a different way that people think of it. Uh, and so I can find growth in all of those areas, and they all can like fuel each other
Yeah.
in a good way.
In a definitely good way.
Yeah.
And it's just finding the capacity for yourself. Because like I said, your identity is what I tell people is here's the thing. I don't know if you know this. I'm a certified life coach, business coach, and brand coach. So I'm certified in all those things. But one of the things when you're talking about your life, sweetie, when you strip away everything that you do
Mm-hmm.
and just stand in what you are, it's why I can claim to be an empathic bitch. And I'm comfortable with that because I know my level of empathy, and that follows me wherever I go. I can meet a stranger on the street and still, baby, what we doing? Are we crying? Are we fighting? Whose ass are we kicking? That's me. And so forth. To a total stranger. And
Yeah.
my bitch mode, sweetie, I've been a bitch since I hit my father with a shoe because he wouldn't let me watch football game. So I know those things, and they are consistently me.
Yeah.
But what I do is I've done the restaurant thing. I've done the coaching thing. I'm doing brand strategy now. These are things that I do, and I
Mm-hmm.
love to do them. I love to help people. But when you strip away everything else, I'm that person that I want to inspire you to get off your ass. Don't punk out on yourself. Don't punk out on anything you want to do. I want you to stand up and fight. And I'm going to fight with you. I'm not going to fight for you,
Mm-hmm.
but that's who I am at my core. So when you strip away all the things that you do and you say, what's left with Chris? That is your life.
Mm-hmm.
And though I may let some of my life bleed into my business and my brand, sweetie, you can't handle all of this. This is too much brilliance for you.
Yeah.
And that's what you get to tell people. I am over here. I'm Chris, the personal brand. Over here, I'm Chris Martin, the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you get is still a portion of me. It's just not all of me.
Right.
Because when I turn off the camera, when I turn off the mic, I go grab my dog. Fuck all of y'all.
He's gonna go lick his balls. We're out of here. Wait, we cut him off. Never mind.
And that's the thing. That's what I got for you today, sweetheart. I hope this was helpful.
It
Any
was.
any last word? Oh, tell people where they can find you. Give me your stuff. Give me your information.
The easiest way to find me is chrismartinstudios.com. It'll have the links to my podcast there, Getting Work to Work. You can find it on Apple, Spotify. I don't have access to all 600 episodes on Spotify. The RSS feed would be way too big, and Apple would give me the middle finger. So I just have the most 75 recent episodes
Okay.
on Spotify and Apple and all that. But you can get access to all 600 plus on gettingworktowork.com.
Oh wow, great. I love it. I love it. All right, brand baby. So that is it for today. Y'all know I'm gonna blow this shit up. So 5, bullshit happens. So suck it up. 4, your voice is important. So speak up. 3, you make the world a more beautiful place. So show up. 2, life is good. So buck up. And 1, I love you and ain't a damn thing you can do about it. So shut the fuck up. Peace and hair grease, y'all.